Hey guys, what's up? Today, once again, we're gonna take a look at 10 JRPGs ruined by the release date of other JRPGs. And of course, we're gonna find out the reasons why. So let's begin! Number 10. Illusion of Gaia. Illusion of Gaia was the second attempt of Company Enix to establish Quintet as a popular developer. Previously, they had failed with Soul Blazer, with which they barely did any advertising. The exact opposite happened with Illusion of Gaia, as it was sold as kind of a big deal. This action RPG where you could control 3 different characters with overly beautiful pixel art and great animations was released on September 26 of 1994 in North America. That was 10 months after its original release in Japan. Sadly, one of the most important JRPGs in video game history was about to be released merely 15 days later. One that Squaresoft had been advertising for months, crushing Illusion of Gaia's only hope at success. The Colossus I'm talking about was none other than Final Fantasy VI, known as 3 outside of Japan. Released on October 11 of the same year, the game was a massive commercial success, and it only paved the way to future ports and releases of the series, utterly destroying what little chance many other JRPGs had. You've gotta consider that back then the genre was nowhere near as big worldwide as it is today, so Enix must have been crushed to see their action RPG failing against one of the best Final Fantasy games ever made. Number 9. Luffia II. The first Luffia game met some small success, so Natsume was hopeful to establish this as a solid franchise, a true competitor to all of those Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest games. So near the end of the Super Nintendo's lifespan, they launched not the sequel, but the prequel to the series. It was released on February 24 of 1995 in Japan, and it met some moderate success. The game turned out to be much better than its troublesome predecessor, and critics absolutely loved it. But the excitement lasted for only a few weeks because, well, the biggest monster in JRPG history, one that many still consider nowadays as the best of all time, was released on March 11. Chrono Trigger. Yup, you can imagine how this one crushed Luffia II like a little ant. But that was all in Japan, man. Luffia II will go on to suffer yet another crushing defeat in North America. Yeah, that's right, this ain't over yet. As if the Chrono Trigger apocalypse wasn't enough for Natsume, Squaresoft will annihilate it once again a year later. On the month of May of 1996, they localized the game to our region. The same month, Squaresoft released another huge bomb. Super Mario RPG. I mean, this is insane. Can you even imagine failing not only once but twice to some of the most popular JRPGs ever created in the 90s? Talk about double kill, man. What the hell? Number 8. Shinigami Tensei Devil Summoner, Raido Kusunoha vs. the Soulless Army. This one was recently remastered, even though it looks like a remake. Maybe it has recuperated from the crushing defeat it suffered all the way back on October of 2006. Or not, but we'll get to that in a bit. Back then, Atlus was interested into expanding their Shin Megami Tensei universe with some spin-offs before their Persona saga became a worldwide phenomena, so this little action RPG taking place in the 1930s was a good addition to experiment with the series, with players controlling the title character Raido Kusunoha and a variety of demons he could summon to fight by his side. While the game was commercially successful in Japan, it met a dire fate overseas. You see, the exact same day, on October 10, Namco launched the long-anticipated Tales of the Abyss. After my favorite Tales game, Legendia, met a lukewarm reception, Namco did everything to release Abyss to make up for it, and fans knew it. However, there was a much bigger giant that came crushing not just Raidu, but also Tales of the Abyss as well. And that was, of course, Final Fantasy XII. For some reason, Square Enix released it on Halloween, but it was still 2 weeks after the other two JRPGs. So Namco didn't even enjoy that much success after all, but at least it got something, unlike Devil Summoner here. So, did the remaster do well? Better than in 2006? I don't think so. The Nintendo Switch 2 launched a few weeks before it with a gazillion ports like the Zelda games, for example. And also, I mean, look at this. Look at this! Do you honestly believe it stood a chance? Number 7. Ark Rise Fantasia. This turn-based RPG exclusive to the Wii wasn't supposed to become a hidden gem or anything. Marvelous and Ignition Entertainment, the publishers in Japan and North America respectively, planned it to be huge. It took influence from the Tales series, but only in storytelling, gameplay, and character style. In terms of combat, it was vastly different with very unique characteristics, typical of its developer Image Epoch. Sadly, the localization was bad, the English dub was beyond terrible, and the game faded into oblivion. With more advertisement and better work, the game would have been successful in North America, I'm sure, but they released it 13 months after its Japanese release. It got here on July 27 of 2010, only 16 days after the acclaimed and heavily anticipated Dragon Quest IX on the Nintendo DS. The game, offering a multiplayer feature for the first time ever, was a big deal and obviously a commercial success. Nothing competed back then, so Ark Rise Fantasia's small chance on the mainstream market faded away. Now, if you think it would have failed regardless, had it been released long before or after, check their JRPG releases of that year. It wouldn't have been able to stand a chance either way. Maybe with a PS3 release. Maybe. Number 6. Devil Survivor 2. The second Devil Survivor game was released in North America on February 28th of the year 2012. The first game had been slightly successful as yet another Shin Megami Tensei spin-off. Its remaster on 3DS also met with some positive sales, so Atlus was happy to release the second entry overseas. It will also receive a remaster on the 3DS, but that's a story for another time. Today is all about how its original release was buried 6 feet under by two giants that, once again, were very anticipated. In fact, Devil Survivor 2 here got literally sandwiched by both. First, on February 14, Operation Rainfall was successful and Exit Games took charge into localizing Hironobu Sakaguchi's The Last Story, a Wii exclusive. Sure, nowadays it's a forgotten game no one wants to remaster for some reason, but back then it was a big deal, trust me. The game met the same success it had met in Japan, with some criticism but nothing too harsh. But that wasn't all. Devil Survivor didn't even have a good time to breathe, as it will be completely ignored a couple of weeks later by another Wii game. But this one was a remaster released now exclusively on the PlayStation 3, and the first time ever the world outside of Japan will play it with an official English release. Tales of Grace's F on March 13. A complex, hardcore but very charming action RPG that enjoyed the newly born popularity of the Tales series overseas, because before it, most titles were either overlooked or technically hidden gems. I'd say the Tales series didn't become as popular as it is nowadays until this gem and the Exilia duology came about. But oh well, there goes poor Devil Survivor 2, merely trying to survive the devils that crushed it. Number 5. Ragnarok Tactics. Ragnarok Online was an extremely popular MMORPG and one of the first ever to succeed. So of course the developers and publishers thought it would be a good idea to approach the home console market with some titles. So their first idea was a spin-off called Ragnarok Tactics, exclusive to the PSP, released on November 6 of 2012 in North America. The advertisement wasn't big or anything, but magazines and journalists took notice of it. How could they not? A home console video game within the super popular Ragnarok Online universe? But then Atlus started taking revenge against everyone and anyone for all those previous losses throughout the years. We already saw 2 of them. It was their time to shine in the video game market a la mainstream, and so they considered the PS Vita to port one of the most popular JRPGs in video game history, Persona 4. It was now called Golden, released over here on November 20. While the genres were different, which has been the case with some JRPGs in this video series, I still strongly believe Ragnarok Tactics had a good chance. It could have been more successful had it not been crushed merely 2 weeks later after the abysmal success of Persona 4. Which is ironic considering the PS Vita was a failure, but remember that it didn't fail until some years later when Sony stopped supporting it. Persona 4 Golden was basically a launch title, and a lot of people bought the console just so they could play it. And so, no one gave a damn about one of the best strategy RPGs on the PSP anymore. A tragedy. Number 4. The Alliance Alive. This is a strange case as it was ruined by another JRPG that sold a lot, from a popular franchise heavily anticipated, but one that also met mixed reviews worldwide. The Alliance Alive was supposed to be the big comeback of Yoshitaka Murayama to the JRPG world in home consoles, well, at least on a portable system. He wrote the script for this game for a company named Cattle Call, then Furyu released it in Japan on June of 2017. Luckily Atlus, back then already a very popular localizer, picked it up for its worldwide release on 3DS almost a year later. It came to us on March 27 of 2018. Only 4 days, that's right, 4 days after Bandai Namco's Level 5 project. A sequel no one was expecting, but thanks to the popularity of the first game, it made a lot of sense. The game was Ni no Kuni 2, The Revenant Kingdom, an action RPG that took inspiration from the Tales series for the battle system, and very ironically the Suikoden series for the world building mechanics, which was coincidentally also quite similar to the world building in The Alliance Alive. Both games focused on recruiting NPCs for different goals, except The Alliance Alive was done by the creator of the Suikoden series himself, whereas in Ni no Kuni 2 it felt more like a ripoff. Fans of the first game were disappointed and the game met mixed criticism when it came out. I think it's a good game, but not the masterpiece it probably tried to be. Anyway, The Alliance Alive will enjoy some more small success when This America released its HD remaster for PS4 and Switch on October of 2019. But it got sandwiched by Code Vein and the definitive edition of Dragon Quest XI a couple of weeks prior, and a couple of weeks later by Atelier Ryza and Trails of Cold Steel 3. Damn! Number 3. Oniaki. Oniaki was an action RPG with some dark and mature themes whose fame lasted for about 8 days until Platinum Games crushed it with another game. Still, I'd like to say that the reception for this particular title wasn't very positive, so it probably would have failed either way, which pains me to admit since I thought it was a very decent game. Developed by Tokyo RPG Factory, who was known for I Am Setsuna and Lost Sphere. 2 love letters to classic 16 and 32-bit JRPGs from the golden age. Oniaki was a departure in terms of themes and battle mechanics, as it was no longer turn-based but rather action, literally hack and slash. Still a very good game, but it was released on August 22 of 2019, 8 days before the AAA Colossus Astral Chain was published by Nintendo. Chain was a huge deal, and I'm sure most of you still remember the hype or the controversy with the review bombing because of its exclusivity. Whatever the case, Astral Chain became a very successful title, exceeding 2 million copies sold worldwide. Yeah, I think it's a better game than Oniaki, but not by a landslide or anything. In fact, I still believe Oniaki could have done better had it been released in a month with no AAA bastards in sight. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case, and it failed. Several years later, Square Enix would announce that its developer, Tokyo RPG Factory, was no more. Number 2. Trinity Trigger. Wanna hear about a gruesome overkill case? Meet Trinity Trigger then, released on April 25 of 2023. Another JRPG supposedly inspired by the golden age era of the genre. Low budget but still quite appealing and fun. Exit Games brought it overseas and it did a decent job with the localization. Publicity wasn't done very well, but at least a lot of people heard from it, including reviewers and online magazines, so it definitely could have enjoyed some success and popularity had it not been destroyed by 10,000 collections, remakes and remasters. Mega Man Battle Network Collection on April 14, the Final Fantasy 1-6 pixel remasters on April 19, Advance Wars Collection on April 21, Live Alive Remake finally physical on April 27, Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak DLC expansion pack on April 28. I don't have to go on, but here's the critically acclaimed Chinese free-to-play RPG, Honkai Star Rail as the icing on the cake. Oh yeah, Trinity Trigger never stood a chance. At least it wasn't crushed by a major super important AAA release, but still, Final Fantasy pixel remasters? Everyone was talking about those back then. Hell, I'd say that freaking collection ruined all the other JRPGs released during the same month. Anyway, I just did a review of Trinity Trigger a few weeks ago that I'll leave at the end if you wanna watch it. Number 1. Sandland. This number 1 spot is a curse. Let me explain why. Sandland was released worldwide on April 26 of 2024 on all modern platforms except the Switch. That was its first mistake. It's an action RPG based on a manga series created by Akira Toriyama all the way back in the year 2000. It's horrible that he passed away on March 1 of the same year, so he wouldn't live to see his final work released. It was published by Bandai Namco, who's usually one of the companies with a lot of JRPGs that have ruined other JRPGs with their release dates, right? Well, this game, it couldn't compete against another title with a very similar haunting situation. A JRPG that became one of the most successful Kickstarters in history. Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. The spiritual successor to the Suikoden franchise, conceived by veterans. One such veteran was the series creator Yoshitaka Murayama, who also died right before the game was released. So just like Toriyama, he wouldn't live to see his last work. It's incredible how this happened around the same time, with barely a month in difference. Both legendary authors didn't live to see one game crush the other in attention, popularity, reception, and success. Of course, Eiyuden Chronicle will go on immediately to create infamy for its dreadful localization, but still, it crushed Sandland by being released only 3 days before, on April 23. Cursed video games, both of them, one ruined by the other, developed by two guys who died right before their release. But do you wanna meet the game that crushed both of them by a landslide and wasn't even Japanese? Released on the exact same date as Sandland on April 26 to a massive worldwide commercial success and controversial reception, the mighty Stellar Blade.